Welcome to I Love My HBCU ? The podcast where we express our undeniable love for HBCUs, but where we are also not afraid to address a few tough questions. So, sit back, learn a little, love a lot, and rep your HBCU. Hello everyone, yours truly, Tosin Richard, with I Love My HBCU ? I'm always smiling though, but I was about to say I'm smiling because I've already had a heartwarming conversation with Everett CJ Mason Jr. I'm going to call you CJ. I'm going to call you CJ from here
That
on
works.
out. And he's just an amazing human being. Hi CJ, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for your kind words. I really, really appreciate that.
So, CJ, I'm lucky. I am an educator. And I say I'm lucky because I get to meet so many students on a daily basis. And so when people when people have some stereotypical things to say that are negative about students, in my head, I'm always like, I get to meet so many of them that I don't focus on the stereotypically negative ones. You happen to be one of those for me that literally give me hope for the future. So I'm not going to say it for you. I'm going to let you tell us, where are you currently? Mind you, we're recording this in the summer. We may not see your episode until the fall, but we're recording this in the summer. What are you doing with your time right now, Everett?
So I'm actually at Purdue University right now with the Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship. We just call it SURF. But I'm essentially, I'm only a rising sophomore at the illustrious Tuskegee University. But we're doing research out here, and this is a program not really many rising sophomores get accepted into. So I was one of the esteemed, I guess, to get into the program early, and I'm able to do research to make it simple, doing machine learning and artificial intelligence stuff, even as a mechanical engineer. So I'm going to get a lot of useful experiences here. And I'm spending essentially 10 weeks trying to find a good fit for a graduate school. And I know I want to get my PhD as well. So trying to work towards getting that goal and getting those connections.
He already knows he wants to get his PhD, which scares the living daylights out of me, but good on you. Good on you. I've got a few questions for you. I am perfectly okay saying that I am ignorant to a large degree on what machine learning is. And those who are judging me, I don't care, judge away. That's perfectly okay. Most of us don't really know the intricacies of what machine learning is. So, if you will, CJ, for somebody like me who hears these terms just thrown all over, what exactly is machine learning?
So I'll be honest, as a thing I've noticed in my research, there's a lot of buzzwords going around. There's artificial intelligence, machine learning, all these words. All you simply really need to know when it comes to machine learning and artificial intelligence, we're just trying to make it so computers can make decisions by themselves. So essentially, even with the computers you're using right now, say you're using your phone, your computer's doing stuff, but it's only taking the inputs that you're using. So essentially, we're trying to work towards, specifically with my project, we're working towards making machines be able to tell when they're messing up by themselves because those machines may have a lot of economical costs if you have to replace tool parts. And even just having to have downtime, that affects factories a lot. So we're trying to use machine learning to put on those machines specifically, and they can tell when they're going to mess up. They can tell operators, hey, I think there's been a problem with this operation. Can you check it? Essentially not trying to make them run completely by themselves. I'm not too big on the whole robots taking our jobs. I want a job still, but trying to make sure that we can make stuff a little bit easier for humans and trying to make it so the machines can learn from themselves.
So, oh gosh, I always want these episodes to be conversations between you and I, but you know, the guest and myself. But sometimes when the guest is talking, not sometimes, all the time when the guest is talking, I just want to throw a whole bunch of other questions at you. And mind you, we're supposed to be getting into your love of HBCUs. We're going to get there in a second. I have so many other things to ask you. But before I ask that, I also want to put on the table how much I love that there is an engineering, oh gosh, this is going to sound bad. It's not meant to sound bad. CJ,
Mm-hmm.
typically when I talk to engineering students, I don't understand most of the words that are coming out of their mouth. You
Me
get
either.
that.
Me either.
Thank you. Thank you for understanding exactly where I'm going, and exactly what I mean there. But I appreciate you because I understand all of the words coming out of your mouth.
Thank you so much for
You
that.
absolutely. You remind me so much. We had a scientist on the podcast. Her name is Dr. Grayson, Cory Grayson,
I
and
watched the
every
episode, yes,
you
ma'am.
watch that. Yay! What I love about having the CJs and the Cory Graysons on the podcast, what I love about having you on there is I want the world, like the entire world, to see that scientists can be geeks and still be understandable. Scientists can be nerds and still relate so effortlessly with us, because I feel that thanks to the way you just explained machine learning to me, I'll never, ever forget it. But others have explained machine learning to me. I'm still like, what the F are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking. So I wanted to definitely give you some kudos on that. The other kudos I want to give you is you're a freshman. You're let me not take you backwards. You're a rising sophomore. However, you got this opportunity as a freshman. I want you to explain to all of the other students, incoming freshmen, rising sophomores, how you got this opportunity, because you're right. It's not an opportunity that is often given to a freshman. How did you get it? And what advice do you have for those who always say there are no opportunities for internships and experiences for freshmen?
So honestly, to make a long conversation really short, the best piece of advice I can give anybody is just go for it. Because even when I was applying for SURF, so my research at Tuskegee, which I also got into research at Tuskegee as a freshman, which is very convenient, very fortunate of me to be able to get that position. But it also helped me because we had a relationship with Purdue already, because my research works with Purdue. So essentially, we reached out to one of the professors here and just went for it. We were like, okay, I know I want to do something with my summer. I don't just want to sit at home. What can I do to get ahead a little bit? So he reached out, and I'm actually working on the professor who's over the big project by himself. I'm working directly with him on the project. And honestly, sure, to some degree, you have to be an outstanding student. But I would say from everybody I've seen, even just looking on Instagram at my other friends from Tuskegee, most of my freshman friends have internships because they went out there and tried to. And I'll be honest, not to brag, but if you're a Tuskegee student, you have some prestige over a lot of people, especially being like the Black Ivies. Like we definitely are that. So I would definitely think that it has something to do with that. People know us and people respect us, but definitely just being a student who goes out there and just goes for it, because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if you don't take any of them, well, you may end up just wasting all your time.
Just go for it, number one. Number two, you used a term that you're the first one to use it on the podcast. I'm not going to tell you what that term is yet because I have a question for you about it right after you do the rapid fire segment. Are you ready for your rapid fire?
Yes, man.
Yes, you are. Okay. So you've watched the podcast. So because you watched the podcast, you know why I call it a rapid 67 instead of a rapid 60. Yes.
About the 10, what was it? The 10 colleges, 10 HBCUs. That was the most HBCUs that were founded in the 1 year, I
In
think it was, in
1867. That's
1867.
it. Okay. Okay. Say, listen, you're a smart kid. So I'm going to just give you tests every now and then just for the heck of it. Okay. All right. Are we ready for the rapid 67?
Absolutely.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Ooh, you gave me a hard one to start with.
That's easy.
Okay. I would say curious first, compassionate second, and loyal third.
Curious, compassionate, loyal. That's amazing. That's amazing. You're at your college graduation. You've got a few years. Knowing you, you may try to do it earlier, but you still got a couple of years. Who do you want as the commencement speaker?
This is a hard question. Okay. I feel like my default says Obama, right? Right. But I feel like there's also, so I can't remember the person's name exactly, but there was one black engineer with NASA that I really look up to. I can't remember his name right now, but also having him, because especially Tuskegee, we're the only HBC with an aerospace program. So that's already good enough on its own. What you thinking?
You are
But
you the only
so
are you the only HBCU with an aerospace? Really?
only
Okay.
HBCU with an aerospace engineering program.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. 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 But if you remember the guy's name, let us know what the guy's name is, okay?
Yes, man.
What's the best meal at Tuskegee?
I have to give the obvious answer, but not for what you expect. So I'm gonna say fried chicken Wednesday, right? I'm not even gonna say further fried. The fried chicken is amazing. Don't get me wrong, but it's because fried chicken Wednesday always comes with line dancing. That's my favorite part. That is my favorite part. Yes, we line dance in the calf. Usually you get your plate and then you line dance for like 30, 40 minutes and then you finally get to eat your chicken. So I'm gonna say fried chicken Wednesdays, but not even for the food.
So, okay, clearly I've gone over 67 seconds. Um, clearly, this is the first that I'm hearing about this. But can I tell you what I love about that? So many of our HBCUs have these different traditions that kind of just make them what they are. And this is the first that I'm hearing. I'm slightly jealous. I love to dance, so I'm slightly jealous. Wait, I need to visualize this. So everybody gets, I do. Everybody gets their fried chicken. And is it like it's
Mhm.
a number of you, like a good group of you that are line dancing? And is it that everybody must do it?
It's not a must. It's definitely not a must, but it's usually most people, especially us freshmen, sophomores. You know, juniors and seniors sometimes be a little bit too cool to do it, but especially us freshmen and sophomores, we have a DJ set up in the front part, and essentially, I would say the general rule of thumb is don't sit at those tables close to there because you're going to get hit by somebody line dancing. So, we usually line dance around those tables, I guess. Sometimes we move them out the way, and during homecoming this past year, we had to move all the tables out the way. Like it was so many people in there line dancing. It was and it got really hot in there. There were so many people, but yeah, we line danced right in the middle of our cafeteria.
CJ, I don't always say this, but I do actually want to visit every single HBCU while I'm still hosting this podcast. And I'm
Mhm.
definitely coming to Tuskegee while you are a student there. And I'm going to make sure I come on one of the Fried Chicken Wednesdays so that we can line dance together. I have to do this.
Absolutely,
I think this is
absolutely.
amazing. Okay, so I ate up every single second of your Rapid 67, but I'm still going to throw two more questions at you. The
Okay.
first one, you love Tuskegee University, beautiful, which also tells me you love HBCUs. However, what is your unpopular opinion about HBCUs?
Mm, mm. I would say one of the biggest drawbacks that I see to HBCUs. So HBCUs are definitely diverse. I think one of the only issues sometimes that people can have at HBCUs is that it's still sort of sheltering. So yes, it's lovely to be around the rest of your lovely Black community, and I highly value that. But I definitely think being able to interact with a lot of different cultures, backgrounds, people who may not eat the same things as you, they may have different behaviors or cultures than you. I think going to a high school that had similar stuff, behaviors like that, I think that was a really big thing that stood out to me going to HBCU because yes, we have our international students and we have people from all around the U.S. But it really sort of that's the thing I've been able to experience over my summer has been being around people from different backgrounds, different places. I've been learning some Spanish even over the summer because there's a lot of people who speak only Spanish or Portuguese. So that's one of the biggest drawbacks, but I think it's still one of those things that would help you prepare for the workplace, but it's not necessarily a necessity.
We're going to get into that because I know there are two camps here. There is a school of thought that is like, no, no, we don't need that. There's another school of thought that you've just shared that talks about the advantage. And I want us to actually talk about the advantage of there being greater diversity at HBCUs. But my last question in the ever so long 67 seconds. Shout out your favorite professor and what do they teach?
Okay, so I was ready for this question. It's technically not a professor. She's administration. Miss Toya Dean. I'm sure whenever she's watching this, she'll still smile. She's our coordinator of student activities, but she is honestly like a second mom to us. She's actually she's one of the big reasons why I even attended Tuskegee. Because she came to us with open arms. Even in my freshman year, she's been one of the biggest factors of change for me. So definitely big shout out to Mama Dean.
Big shout. I don't know you, Mama Dean. I hope I meet you someday, but thank you for all that you do because it matters for persons like CJ to truly feel at home when this is the honest first place that they are leaving away from home. So thank you. We've got a lot to get into, CJ. We've got a whole lot to get into. I've tried to write as many things down, but I know because you shared this with us that you're from Mississippi. So I want you to tell us how a lovely, brilliant kid from Mississippi ends up at Tuskegee University when we know that there are more than a few HBCUs along the route before getting there. So give us your college selection journey.
Okay, so absolutely. So for me, it was actually a bit unorthodox, I would say. So I essentially went to a magnet school to make a very long story short. I went to a magnet school called the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science. There gave me a lot of exposure to stuff I had never seen before. Because the school I went to before then was definitely, it was in the country. It didn't have as many opportunities. And I got to do stuff at MSMS I never would have had opportunities to do otherwise. One of those was knowing that I could apply to places I never thought I would be able to get into. So I'm actually at Tuskegee on a full ride scholarship. Thank the Lord for that. But I also had a full ride in state for Mississippi State University. If you're not familiar with that, that's a PWI. They have one of the best engineering programs in Mississippi. As well, I had also gotten accepted in some other colleges, but most notably, I got accepted into Rice University as well, which is one of the top 20 schools in the nation. Very, very honored to have gotten that. But the biggest problem with that was the fact that I had only received a half tuition scholarship. So money was a big thing to me. I had to try and make decisions based on what I had available. My parents for sure supported me, however, they were going to support me, however, and I'm grateful for that. But I wanted to make sure they've done enough for me. I wanted to make sure I had my school paid for. So when it came down to it, I was between those three schools, and it really just took touring Tuskegee did it for me.
Mm,
Like
mm.
honestly, I had toured it. I never got the chance to tour Rice, but I toured Mississippi State. It was cool and everything. But when I toured Tuskegee and actually got to talk to Miss Dean, got to talk to some of the tour guides and counselors and everybody else on campus, even some of the students while we were touring stopped and talked to us. It really felt like home. It felt like family. And at that point, I was like, I know I want to go to a HBCU. And especially I had some influence. My parents both went to HBCUs. So I grew up in the HBCU culture. I grew up going to Alcorn State University's football games. And for me, I just knew it was going to be a great experience. And as somebody who going into high school, I knew I wanted to get a graduate degree. I knew that I could go somewhere after then that may have more prestige. I only say prestige with quotations because some people don't know about HBCUs. Even here at Purdue this summer, I've had to explain what is a HBCU, what is Tuskegee. So I know for my graduate degree, I can go wherever, and I honestly still may attend a HBCU for that graduate degree. But even the thing you had mentioned with the other podcasts y'all had talked about was like going to an Ivy for your master's or doctorate. That's something I really want to shoot for. And just even just enjoying these 4 years because at the end of the day, I think this HBCU experience has shaped me a lot just in this 1 year, and I can only wait for what's going to happen over the next three.
I love it. So I love it for several reasons. Two that I'm going to quickly shoot at you that invite you to even give us a little bit more. Um, you're not the first person that I've heard say once they toured the campus, they just knew, which tells me that a lot of our, I'm going to say universities, period, not just HBCUs, carry an energy, carry a feeling. What's the feeling? I know you talked about talking to Mama Dean. I know you talked about conversing with other students here and there. I get it, but if you could describe the energy you felt when you toured Tuskegee that made you say, "This is it. This is where I'm going." How would you describe it in a couple of words?
To put it easily, and I think this is one that a lot of people not only relate to, I've heard other people say this as well. I felt like I was a person there and not just a number. When I came to the admissions office, they knew my name. They're like, "Oh, are you so and so?" And I was like, "How did you know that was me?" So it was really a enlightening experience for me to be able to, especially because right before that, I had toured another university, large PWI. I was one of two black kids there with over, I think, 300 plus people that were touring there, and that was engineering department. So I didn't really feel that welcome there. They didn't know my name. They never really cared to make a effort to know my name. But by the end of it, Ms. Dean knew my name. Ms. Dean had my contact information. Like there was a lot of I felt compassion. I felt like I was wanted there versus a lot of the other schools. They only want you for to be there, for lack of a better way to say it, model black kid. They'll put you on all the diversity pictures. They'll make sure they put you out there for everything that'll look good. But as far as actually valuing you, a lot of those other places just didn't offer that for me.
Wow. I love the honesty. So as somebody who was raised all over the world, including in England, and my brain had to go to my niece currently, who is in England. And she lives there. When you said model black kid and having a picture, we relate. Some of us relate so well, and my brain immediately went to all those images, and I was like, he's not wrong. I know others who might be hearing it, especially those at the PWIs. For those who are not doing it intentionally, that's the way it comes off. It's the way it comes off. Just so you know, that's the way it comes off. But CJ, can we tie two things together here? Everything you just said and what your response was for one of the rapid fires, and that is your unpopular opinion about some HBCUs or HBCUs at large still being a little sheltered and needing more diversity. Let's get into it. Um,
Okay.
and I say let's get into it because even in what you just said now, you described feeling at home when you went to this HBCU. And part of what makes you feel at home is you see other people that look like you, and you see other people that you don't always have to explain your rationale, your behavior, blah, 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 blah. They get it. But your unpopular opinion, rightfully or wrongfully so, it's your opinion, you're allowed to have it regardless, is that there should be more diversity. Let's talk about that. I want you to talk about the advantages to having such diversity at the HBCU and not just solely focus on it being black.
Okay. So I would say one large thing, and I think this is a big thing that's sort of tying the two together, is that at the PWIs, a lot of the times, like where I mentioned the diversity, often a lot of times we're still the minority. And I think that's the difference for HBCUs is because when you're the majority, like I mentioned earlier, you feel a lot more at home. You feel a lot more welcomed, which sometimes is not necessarily a good thing. Sometimes you got to push yourself out of your comfort zone to actually make some progress on social skills as well as learning other people's experiences. But tying back to your question, I think diversity amongst blacks is something that definitely we have to work on because I would say one thing that as a kid growing up at the school I did, I used to get called an exact quote, the whitest black kid they had ever met. And that was just purely because I didn't fulfill the stereotypes that they wanted me to. And even sometimes at my HBCU, people still judge me for not fitting the stereotypes of what's portrayed in media most of the time as black people. Um, and I think what I find useful with that diversity sometimes is that so often I can find people who may not necessarily act whether they're black or not, people who may act in the same behavior as me. So even as far as diversity in HBCUs, it doesn't necessarily mean colors. It doesn't necessarily equate to what does your skin look like or how much money did you have growing up. Just really being able to realize we have black nerds. We have people who are more chill. We have people who are introverts. All of those for the most part are me. And just really trying to accept that and accept our differences, even in those inclusive environments where it is just us, where it is just black people from so many different walks of life.
I love it. I love that. Who and you may be a little too young for us to delve into the politics and the nuances of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
Notions that are sweet. You're not too young. You're not too young.
Nah, we talked about it at our NESB conference and everything too.
let's talk about it then. And the let's talk about it then that I'm referring to is, you may have observed that in the nation, i.e., in the United States of America, recently there has been a movement to dampen diversity, equity, and inclusion as it benefits Black and Brown persons. That's my best way of describing it. Mind you, persons like myself, and I want to hear what persons like CJ have to say about this. When I think of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and let's just focus on the diversity part of the acronym, I am not just looking at color. I am looking at all the things that should make up our differences, whereby we benefit from those differences, as opposed to see those differences as negative. And it would be nice to see, to your point, more of those types of differences at HBCUs, whereby CJ, it's not CJ's color that you see first, it's CJ's attributes and traits and characteristics that you see first that end up
Hmm.
describing who he is. So yes, since you're not too young to delve into that conversation, I do want to know what your thoughts are about the conversations going on with regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion in our country.
Okay. So I will preface this by saying that I spent a lot of my childhood, especially in Mississippi, growing up learning about civil rights, about emancipation, everything that ties into the Black struggle. My parents have always made sure I was well versed in that and understood that subject very well. So for me personally, just like the fact that we have to even have DEI acts, and like the fact that we have to have this stuff in our modern world still sort of shakes me a little bit, because from all the work that our ancestors did to try and get equality, we've never had true equality. And not getting too much into like the past few years and what's all happened, because there have been tragedies that have happened to Black people in the past few years and even still likely today. Um, but just thinking about the fact that we have to even be debating this is still sort of ridiculous to me, because for me personally, like not to even like take a stance on it of why can't we just all be friends and like happy go lucky about it, because at the end of the day it's not be. But the fact that we aren't in a state of society now where we're almost what 50, 60 years past the major civil rights act, we shouldn't need to have DEI. We should definitely not have people trying to walk back DEI. People like DeSantis trying to make stuff where you can't even talk about critical race theory. That's ridiculous to me personally. I don't see why this is even a thing. I don't see why these people keep ending up in power. And like I'm not a very, very political person. I would preface with that, but I just feel like we have to make steps as not only Black people but as minorities in America to try and work towards not letting them walk over us. Because a big thing we talked about at our NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers, NSBE, the annual national convention, our region is mostly the South. So one of the big things we talked about is DEI. Stuff like in Mississippi, they tried to close down 3 schools. Conveniently, those 3 were going to be the HBCUs. And that's not subtle. It's not subtle racism. It's pretty blunt. I feel like that's pretty out there. So trying to, as a Black people and as a minority, come together and walk back these rules, get people, minorities, Blacks, whoever, get people who work against these policies and try and make it so we don't even need to have DEI anymore. So we are actually at a point of true inclusion. And
Mm.
to some point, we have to start local. We have to start in our own communities. But to a certain point, we have to also go, but that has to be a national struggle as well. That can't just be, oh, say we turn Mississippi around and they do better. That it can't just be Mississippi. We have 49 other states to worry about. So I hope that mostly answered your question, but just trying to work towards having DEI to not even need to be a thing anymore, because we're in such a state where everybody is actually equal and we're not having to uplift others to try and be equal to try and make up for an unfair advantage that they have just from the color of their skin. I hope that answered your question.
We're having a conversation, so listen, whether you answered my question or not, you gave even more content that I hope anybody listening, anybody watching, kind of gets to delve into and helps to even maybe question their own viewpoints along the way. So you're fine. You said a lot of good stuff. One of the things that stuck out to me as you were talking was, and CJ, if you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer. They say you don't ask a woman her age. So if you don't want to answer your age, it's perfectly okay. Because if you ask me, I won't tell you. How old are you?
I'm only 19.
You're only 19. I heard you say, I wonder why these people are still voted in office, right? Which, come on. And I know you said you are not really into politics. What I found as I got older, even for those of us that are not into politics, we must be into politics
Yeah,
because of these policies that are going to be made that we have to live by and under regardless. So bearing that in mind, what would you say to your generation about how important it is for them to actually? You thought I was going to ask you how important it is for them to vote, because that's what everybody asks you.
that's definitely where I thought that was going.
No, that's not where I'm going. That's not where I'm going. Everybody asks that question. I actually don't like that question. And we can get into why I don't like that question a little bit later. Why is it important for the CJs and his generation to actually get more involved with the issues?
Mm. Okay, so to put this as short as I can and not just go off on a tangent, what was the point of all of our ancestors working to free us if we don't do anything with that power? That's a thing that I guess sort of irritates me. That's why I have to like catch myself. But we've worked hard as a race and as Black people in America to try and get to a state where we're equal. And I think a big problem with our generation, and yeah, I'm not afraid to say it. I think a big problem with our generation is the fact that we're so complacent with being okay. We're not outright in chains or anything or in shackles. We're
Mm.
not outright not allowed these equal rights, but we still are. There's still problems that are just subtle racism happening in America. So I feel like as us, as young people, as us being the next generation of leaders and those in power, we have to start making those strides and making those moves to get more involved, to try and take on those leadership roles and get into those positions of power where we can make a change. Because what was the point of all of the people dying and going through all these marches and all this violence if all we're going to do with it is just sit back and watch people step over us?
I'm not adding anything else to that. I think that was powerful in and of itself. But I want to go back to the vote. Still not going to ask you that question. Still not asking you. Still not asking you that question. But I want to ask you, why do you think I'm not asking you that question?
It's a great question. Well, I mean, I feel like that's what, like you said, that's what everybody asks. Like, sure, a vote is one thing, but I also feel like a lot of nuance lies within the vote. Yes, we have the vote. Yes, we fought for the right to vote. And yes, a lot of people don't use that right. But a lot of people also are like, well, what are we going to do with a vote? We're only one person in a world of so many people. And I think what our generation doesn't realize is that if we can all come together and use our individual votes, that'll accumulate to be that large number. So to answer your question of why you're not asking it, not exactly sure, but I think I can sort of understand the logic behind it because
You've
of
got
that
the
nuance
logic.
that lies within it.
That's it. You've got the logic. It's the nuance, right? But if you will permit me, I want to share with you a little bit more on why I don't ask the question about the vote.
Absolutely.
I'm again, anyone who tunes in knows that I proudly state that I am still an academic. I love to engage with students every single day of my life. It's a passion. I love it. So I get to have these conversations all the time, right? And
Hmm.
one student said to me, so we're in Baltimore, Maryland, by the way. So the Baltimore City primaries were occurring earlier on in the spring, and a student said, "Okay, so Dr. Tosin, I don't know who to vote for," and I got silent. So they've seen all the names, and they're coming to me, telling me, not really asking, but telling me, I don't know who to vote for. And I got quiet, and then I just, kept listening. And as I kept listening, I realized that we've done a little bit of a disservice. And the little bit of a disservice that we've done is we've the get out the vote campaigns, beautiful, very, very important. But I like to replace the word vote with voice. And here's the reason why I like to replace the word vote with voice. Voting is an action that must occur. And I think we've gotten it impressed upon a lot of us, including your generation, that it's important to exercise that civic duty and that civic right. But there's this other side that we're not talking about. And that other side that we're not talking about is CJ's running for mayor of his city. What does CJ stand for? What issues does CJ care about? Do I care about the same issues that CJ cares about? How am I going to get myself a little bit more involved with knowing and challenging CJ on the things that he actually cares about? We are not talking about that as much, and we're not engaging with that as much. And what got me excited when I heard you talk, you said we must start local. And that's why Tosin isn't so particular about the vote alone. But I'm like, hold on, can we make sure CJ's voice is heard on a lot of these issues? You can tell this excites me when I hear someone from your generation really get into we need to care a little bit more about all the things our ancestors went through to give us the right and the opportunity to at least fight a little better than they did and make sure that all the fight that they had did not go to waste. So, okay, thank
Absolutely.
you for allowing me to share with you why I don't just ask the question about the vote. I appreciate that. CJ, we were supposed to be talking about HBCUs the whole time. So, CJ, I must ask for you, what does Tuskegee get so right that as you are a rising sophomore, you know you're going to stay at Tuskegee until commencement day? What do they get right for you?
So I would say the one thing that I think is really important and outstanding about Tuskegee, like absolute perfect thing that we do, is we are an absolutely tight knit community. A lot of HBCUs obviously have that bond. Like we're all black people for the most part at these HBCUs, so we have some ties. But I will say Tuskegee, like I will wear my Tuskegee shirt, even this, like this has a small Tuskegee logo on it. I've worn it out in public. Somebody's recognized this small logo and came up and talked to me. I know friends who have been offered money at airports just by wearing the Tuskegee merch. I wish that happened to
Wow.
me.
I wish
Um,
that happened to me
like,
too.
and even at our homecoming, like we have a really small football field because we're a smaller school.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no space to be like you are shoulder to shoulder under the shed at the football games. There is such a strong sense of belonging and community and family at Tuskegee that really that's what helps me stay. No matter what I do, no matter what we go through, Tuskegee's been through a lot recently.
Yeah.
And I will just say the one thing that we've always done good is just be family to one another. We'll stand behind our own family. Obviously, we're going to rep Tuskegee anywhere we go, especially when we're amongst other HBCUs. But regardless, we still remain to be as family. A lot of the alumni, even with, especially in the College of Engineering, a lot of the alumni come back, and that's how a lot of people get jobs. Everybody
Mm,
that I know
mm.
in the senior class that wanted a job left with a job. That's not something you don't leave without. We have such a strong alumni community and community of learners there at that time that really cultivates a sense of family, yes, but of love, I would say too. There's a strong sense of belonging there.
I love it. I love it. We had a Tuskegee alum. HBCU mom is what she goes by, and she's a Tuskegee alum. And anytime she spoke of Tuskegee, she said "Mother Tuskegee." Is that's a
Yeah,
real thing, right?
yeah,
We're gonna have to ask. I'm gonna ask off air where the whole Mother Tuskegee emblem comes from because I don't know where it comes from, but I
yes,
would
ma'am.
love to know. Okay. I asked you what does Tuskegee University get right? I'm going to ask you the opposite. You know, what does Tuskegee get wrong for you?
Okay, so I would say I was prepared for this question. I prepared myself for this question because I knew it was coming. I would say the biggest issue that I have at Tuskegee, at least presently within my first year as a freshman, has been communication and transparency between students and administration. That's a problem at a lot of schools, regardless, whether it's HBCU or PWI. But sometimes I know that there's simple issues that students may have or administration may enact something that the students are necessarily in favor of. And there really isn't the strongest sense of connection between administration and students. Not to say they don't listen, because especially I would say our current administration, we're currently in switching presidents in this next year. Dr. Charlotte P. Morris, ninth president of Tuskegee, just retired. So this is going to be a big year of change for us. But I think that's a big thing that our current SGA administration has been working towards. They've recognized that. They've recognized that a lot of times, if we can just communicate with our administration about what our problems are, then they can start to make that fix. So just trying to be communicating about that. And then transparency, that's an issue with most leadership anywhere. Some things get told to people. If you're not in the room where it happens, then you may be on the menu, you know? So that's just a big, I don't even know if that's like a Tuskegee issue though. I think that's a problem with most universities. But I would say that's probably my biggest issue.
And can I add to that? You said that's a problem with most universities. I was saying this to someone not too long ago, that I think that there is a false expectation when we use the word transparency and leadership. And this isn't me trying to shield lack of accountability. This isn't me trying to shield inadequacies and inefficiencies. That's not what I'm doing. But what I'm doing is, and you're going to get there. You are going to get there. CJ, who plans on being this master doctorate at one day soon, you're going to realize that we actually cannot always be as transparent as people want us to be. And as much as they may not always understand it, as leaders, there's some things you are better off shielding people from. And I think what we must do better as leaders of different universities, including HBCUs, is to make sure we are being accountable to our constituents and not
I like
just
that.
telling them what they want to hear, but no, telling them what we owe them along the way. So, not trying to revise your answer, just saying.
I honestly, I like that view more. I like that view more. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Okay, okay. All right. We could keep going, but I know there could be something that, okay, Tosin, why didn't you ask me this? I was hoping you'd ask me this. So CJ, is there something that I have not either engaged you in conversation with or asked you about during this episode that you want to bless our audience with before we start winding down?
I just want to, first and foremost, I just want to thank you for even giving me this opportunity. This is my first time being on the podcast, so this is a really amazing experience, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. But I also just want
Amazing.
to say, I don't want to say this in a bragging sense. I just want to tell the world, look out for me, because I really want to change the world. I really want to make some positive change in this world. And especially for me, diversity in STEM is a really big thing to me. So I plan to do big things. Just be on the lookout for me. And, definitely keep supporting HBCUs. Keep supporting your Black STEM majors, especially because there's still a lot of support that lacks for Black STEM majors, especially women in STEM. I've seen that through a lot of my friends. So just keep supporting, keep looking out for the next generation. Know that I promise we got this in the bag. I promise we're not going to do anything bad. So just have faith in us. Keep supporting the HBCU students as well as the Black students, even at the PWIs. We are all still Black people at the end of the day. That's a big thing I don't like is the whole split between HBCUs, PWIs. As long as we are Black people all coming together at the end of the day, that's what matters most to me. So yeah,
CJ, thank you. Thank you for boldly making the statement that you made earlier on. I told you even before we hit record that I have a list of students who I keep their names, and I've kept this list and I keep adding to the list. I've had it for over 10 years now, and the students don't know this. I look them up every now and then just to see how they're doing. And I already told you that I've added you to that list. So anybody who happens to be watching this and listening, if you don't have your list, start your list and put Everett CJ Mason Jr.'s name on your list. He told you, look out for him. I'm looking out because you're going to do amazing things in this world. I just know it. Close us out, CJ, by sharing with our audience one short phrase or word as to why you love HBCUs.
Mm. At the end of the day, we're all family. We're all in this. To quote High School Musical, we're all in this together.
So, to quote High School Musical, we're all in this together. We are in this together, CJ. CJ, I appreciate you being my guest from Tuskegee University. I appreciate you for having this lovely conversation with me on I Love My HBCU question mark today. I hope I have earned the pleasure of anybody watching or listening to subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We literally are everywhere, thank heavens. And how could you? How could you? I don't care if you're a STEM major. I don't care if you're a Black student at a PWI or at an HBCU. How could you not like this episode because of CJ? You're going to watch this episode and say, I like that guy. I like that guy. So till next time, yours in HBCU love. CJ, thank you for being my guest.
Thank you.
You've been listening to I Love My HBCU question mark. Let's keep the conversation going as we share our stories and encourage more practical support of HBCUs, whilst of course holding each other accountable. Don't forget to follow and subscribe for the latest episodes. Until next time, love and lift your HBCU.